Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cash Up, a weekly show where we converse with amazing folks in DFIR. And today I'm so excited to be joined by Daryl Pfeif. Daryl's been in the field of digital forensics for over 17 years. She's a partner and founding member of Digital Forensic Solutions and Digital Security Associates, as well as a chief operating officer and a founding board member at DFRWS. Daryl has experience with digital investigations, incident response, social engineering, pen testing, vulnerability assessments, and more, to a variety of sectors, including legal, financial, healthcare, and technology. Prior to her work in digital forensics, Daryl worked as a technology consultant with a focus on 3D animation and interactive media. Daryl is also a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10K Small Business Leadership Program and a recipient of the Outstanding Entrepreneurial Leadership Award for the 2nd Congressional District. Daryl shares her knowledge in a variety of mediums, including having been published for the paper she co-authored, Motivating STEM plus C Learning with Social Impact of Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics, with the IEEE, which was presented at ISTE 20, and presentations including her keynote at the SANS DFIR Summit in 2020, as well as presentations at the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, AAFS, the Diana Initiative, and more. She gives back to the community by being part of several organizations, including DFRWS, DFIR Review, the High Tech Crime Investigators Association, HTCIA, ISACA, and Women's Impacting Public Policy, WIPP. Another integral way that Daryl gives back is via her nonprofit, Cyber Sleuth Labs, which teaches young women and other underrepresented minorities about concepts and careers in digital forensic science and cybersecurity. I remember the first time I met Daryl in person about 5 years ago at Techno Security Myrtle Beach, and I was just blown away by her. You'll never meet someone with as much heart and passion for taking what we do in forensics and looking for new ways to elevate it. And now every year I look forward to seeing Daryl at every DFRWS event across the EU and the US, and just miss chatting with her dearly. She's also one of the most impressive hat collections you will ever see, even when she travels. And with that, hi, Daryl.
Hi, Jessica.
So happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Honored
really,
guest. Thank you.
You do so much. Not only are you an incredible examiner who has been doing this for a long time, very experienced, but you also give back to our community in so many different ways. And you're always at that leading edge of figuring out new ways to integrate and communicate with the community. What was your path to getting here?
Well, that could be a long story, but it is interesting. So when I went to school, really, computer science, I don't think there really was even a computer science program at my university, and it wasn't on my radar. I got into technology because I was doing film and video, and literally we were splicing film.
Oh, and like physical film.
When Avid editors came out, and this was back when, they were like, I don't know, 35 grand a machine or something, and also the visual effects. So that is sort of my interest into computers and technology, and that's where it transferred. And so then I spent many years out in Seattle, kind of at the forefront, the dawn of the internet, and working on many things in that regard. And what started happening was that every time I came up with this amazing invention or something that I was really excited about, it was being subverted.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, for example, this goes back, but I was working for this really, really hot company. We did all the CDs, in the box for the
wow.
launch of MSN, NBC, the first ever flash campaign, all of these really fun, hot, sort of emerging internet technologies, and literally every one of them, we came up with this amazing flash campaign, and then, flash was, weaponized.
Yeah.
and it, frankly, really, really, it pissed me off. And
rightfully so, right? You're trying to use technology for this good, innovative, at that point, really fun way.
yes,
And to see it weaponized and to see that as early as you did in the internet, right? Like, I don't think most people were thinking about those problems.
no, because a lot of it, I mean, I remember early on I was working for the Department of Information Services, and we launched, actually video conferencing back when you needed a $300,000 machine to video conference, and streaming media and web. And, the first, I remember one of the first phishing mails, and it was just a joke. I mean, it was really just a ha, like I was able to do that. It had not evolved to the level of sophistication that it has today. So that's how I got interested in this aspect of technology. I've been in technology for a long, long time, but that's how I became cyber aware. And then I actually got interested specifically in digital forensics by attending an early DFIR. So I went to DFIR in 2004, and I was just absolutely hooked.
Wow.
So that's how I got into specifically into forensics and incident response.
I love that because DFRWS has been such just a great community. And not only did you get hooked by DFRWS, but you are you're the chief operating officer right now for DFRWS. You plan and organize, you're on the executive board, you are on the board for all of the different conferences, 3 a year in different regions of the world. It is a pleasure to get to coordinate with you in DFRWS for my little part that I participate in. Why don't you share a little bit about DFRWS? I don't know. So it's interesting because DFRWS for me is like this intersection of academics doing peer-reviewed work and practitioners looking at that work, getting involved and having those conversations at that intersection and being able to take things from the scientific to the practical in a lab. So I am in love with DFRWS. Here's my really cool mug from the 2019 that I drink tea out of all the time. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I think it'd be really neat if you share a little bit about the mission, what DFRWS does, and exactly because it hooked me. Like the first time I went to a DFRWS event, I'm like, I am here to stay. I love this.
I love DFRWS too, and I'm always thrilled to talk about it. So actually what happened that year, it had been funded by the AFRL, and their funding ran out, as happens. And we, as a community, decided to make sure that it stayed and turned that into a nonprofit, which is now volunteer driven. So that happened in 2005 was our the transition, and the first one that we produced was about a week before Katrina hit New Orleans here in the city. And since then, really, we have just focused on it. And what you mentioned was something that the other founders, Owen Casey, Golden Richard, and Frank Edelstein, the other founding members, saw and noticed and felt was that there was this huge gap between academia and government and industry, and that really to solve the really complex problems that we have, we were going to need a transdisciplinary approach, and that the research, which is so important, needs to inform both the practice and also the application of digital forensics. So that's really the driver. That's the mission. We started in U.S. at the U.S. based event, and I think it was about 2012 or 2013, maybe it was 2012, Hans Hensler, who is very involved in forensics and had been at NFI for many years, basically got a group of sort of the European forensic specialists, and they pressured us. Really, they were
really. I didn't realize they pressured you.
They kind of did. They said, we would really like. They were very, very polite, as they are, right? Very, very polite about it. But basically, it was a bit of an ultimatum. They were really, basically said, if you don't start organizing DFIR events in Europe, then we will. But we love digital forensics. We love DFIR, and we'd much rather you did it. And I thought, that sounds like fun. And so we've expanded into Europe, and that's an amazing community, and has been
incredible. Can we just say the research that has been presented at the EU events, and the amount of practitioners, police departments, and industry, like government practitioners and industry practitioners, that I see when I've been to the events in the EU. I've had the pleasure of going to Norway and to Florence. Like, they are incredible amount of attendees who are having those conversations. And I think it's brilliant what you said about how yourself and Owen and Golden and Frank who are all still involved in DFIR.
Yeah.
16 years later, who were involved before that, but even like since it became its own nonprofit. And that entire concept is realized. And I think that that's really important, that it actually like happens. And I think that's part of the magic, and it informs both ways, right? Like, research in academia is able to really apply the hard science to what digital forensics practitioners are doing. And forensics practitioners are talking about the cutting edge, what they're seeing. And when those conversations happen, it like inspires incredible future research. And I'm in love with everything that happens at DFIR.
And we can talk about the research more, because for me, having been involved in it for so long, I can see how fundamentally important DFIR is and has been in the formation so many of the important aspects of digital forensics that we have today, that we just take for absolute commonplace, such as, memory forensics, really found, their first introduction at DFIR back at a time when, that was not thought to be a thing. So, and I will say that this year, well, technically it was supposed to be 2020, which was a brilliant time to launch an event in the Asia Pacific region, but that has been my, on my list for a long time, and so we just finished our first APAC. So we're expanding, and actually the level of research that was coming out of that, and that we've kind of attracted this whole group of new practitioners, and in a really weird and wonderful way, Jessica, I'm always going to look for the silver lining. As much as I love physical events, and I long to return to those physical events, because so many of the great ideas come, at the pub after, when, people are just talking like this, thinking and talking, and it's less formal.
Absolutely.
So many people are able to participate in virtual events that may not be able to do so otherwise. So, like, for example, we had a huge contingency from the Hong Kong police force.
Yes.
really amazing stuff. It was so exciting to me that we really are able to have people participating from all over the world, time zone dependent, right?
So what I loved about it, actually, I've done a lot of global events, especially pre-COVID, work travel, and post-COVID. And I got to tell you, there's some magic to being in the right time zone for people. I mean, I was out of my time zone attending DFR WS APAC, and I loved every minute of it because, well, I wasn't as jet lagged as I would have been having adjusted to that time zone and flying. But it was just incredible research. And you're talking about people like Dr. Matthew Sorrell out of Adelaide and Dr. Bradley Schatz and the amazing contingency out of Halleyum University in Korea. And, just there are some of the practitioners in Singapore. And there were so many multi-university from different universities across Asia Pacific that geared together for research that was presented. It was just phenomenal. So I love the fact that DFRWS is now able to meet most continents. I guess Africa and Latin America and Antarctica could use some representation.
Yes. But next, give me another year or two to adjust. Again, it's non-profit driven. Right? We do
and
not
lots of volunteers.
And volunteers. So it every time it feels like. Then I'm going back to high school here, but is it like mitosis? So mitosis when the cells divide. And there was this, it took us a bit, right?
Right. Of course.
And to really get the European event running and maintain the forensics event. So that is to say, if anyone's interested in participating in DFRWS, give me a jingle.
So I would say two other things that people might not be aware of that I love about DFRWS is one, all of the publications and research are open access, which is fantastic for practitioners because where academics oftentimes through their universities have access to a lot of the publications that are paywalled, practitioners often don't. And sometimes that's a problem for a local law enforcement agency that wants to read a paper, but it's behind a paywall for an expensive journal. So it's great that all of the DFIR review content is on the DFRWS.org website, and it's all open access. So you can look at all of those publications and read all of those white papers. I love that. And then the second thing is the rodeo. Do you want to talk a little bit about the rodeo? I did not know what to expect for my first rodeo, but they're amazing. So if you could share a little bit about the rodeo.
Not your first rodeo, Jessica. So the forensics rodeo is so funny. I remember I do a lot of the planning. So I remember, working with, I can't remember which hotel it was, but they were really concerned. They were looking at, I sent them the agenda and they were like, the forensics rodeo? They were expecting us to bring in mechanical bulls or something. I don't know.
There are no mechanical bulls. In this instance, I have definitely been to forensic events where forensicators have been on mechanical bulls. But that's
and we have I have footage of Brian Carrier, who was
that's a famous one.
Very involved in DFRWS, especially in the early years. He was a very important part of the OC for many years. I actually have footage of Brian Carrier riding a mechanical bull.
If only we'd planned that for this.
One of the events here in New Orleans. So, but I digress. So the rodeo is so we have three really neat events. So one is the Forensic Challenge, and that has been a way for us to really to push research around certain topic areas. We feel like actually there's a couple challenges out there now that are really still need. There's still quite a bit of work to be done on those, and we're working on a new one. But at each event, we'll have a rodeo, and that rodeo is a way for, kind of practitioners to get together in that informal way and try forensic challenges. So it's kind of like a CTF. but with a forensic flavor. And those are different every year and
every year. They're so different, so different.
And then actually this year, Chris Hargraves, who was our had the extra joy of being our first conference chair to produce an event during the pandemic. He's at Oxford, and he led us in the pub quiz, which was so much fun, and will actually become one, I think, of the most beloved forensics events. So
it was fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. There's a huge focus on community and bringing people together in a less formal way.
And I love it too, because they're teams. Like, I want to explain that, if you do a CTF, like the Magnet CTF that I work on, or if you do like the SANS Net Wars, which I've participated in, those are very like, you are solo and you are competing for a place and you're trying to challenge yourself and how many. This is like teamwork stuff. And some of the challenges are like so out there. And sometimes they're different things. Like, there have been years where it's just, oh, here's a dump from an Apple TV, and no, there's no public research on this. What can you do with it? And then other years, it's been like, here, this is based on memory. And then other years, it's all like puzzles, like crazy, weird digital forensics puzzles. But you get to work on them with other people. And so, like, we'll have teams of 5 to 10 people sitting around with their laptops, and everyone's taking different challenges and working together and buzzing. And it's just, that's the fun part. And everyone has something to contribute, because they cross all different, like, anyway, so much fun. So I know you're involved with some other projects.
One or two.
Did you want to share a little bit about what's going on with DFIR Review?
Well, so DFIR Review is an amazing new project spearheaded, I guess, out of DFR headed by one of the most engaging and talented people in forensics. That would be yours truly, Jessica Hyde.
Thank you, Daryl.
And really, the point of this is something that we have been talking about it for years. Jessica, we've been pushing and talking and hoping, and we just nobody ever picked up that ball and ran with it until you came along. But DFIR Review is really the most, I think, one of the most timely things. So it's providing peer review of research that is published in a slightly different format, not a journal format, a blog, as in a blog format, or less formal way, but still providing that peer review so that it's trusted information. It could be used if you needed to use it in court. And that is just an amazing new endeavor. And I hope to see more of this. I think in our world, where literally, our knowledge is changing on a update by update basis, right? It used to be once a quarter, then it was once a week, and now it seemed, it seems to be almost daily that some of the apps are being updated. So we are no longer in a world where we can wait 6 months to publication. So even in the journal format, which is a great journal, incredibly important, the Journal of Digital Investigation.
Incredibly important journal with incredibly important work.
I'm not going to knock that in any way. And, still for people who want to enter and work in academia, publishing is critically important, right, to that pathway to tenure. But in terms of practicing, when you're really, you need the information yesterday, DFIR Review is just this elegant new solution. So
it's really cool because people can publish research as soon as they're done doing it as a blog. And typically practitioners, not academics, they can blog that research out, which the community's been doing. Check This Week in Forensics, you'll see how much. And then they can submit it and get it peer reviewed. Right. Even though it's already published, which is really, really amazing and allows for that work to then be trusted. And like, I'm looking at the people who have published in here, and it's just like an incredible list of folks, right? Like Alexis Brignoni, Heather Mahalik, Gabrielle Zambelli, Josh Hickman,
Yeah.
Daniel Dickerman, Kevin Pagano, Larry Jones, Heather a lot of times, Ryan Benson, Ross Denley, Matt Gokul, Scott Coing, Zach Stanford, Vladimir Katalov. So people all over the world, EU, Asia, US, like all over the world are sharing practitioner-based content rapidly. So they're able to get it out in the blog. They don't have to wait for the review process. And then it's peer reviewed so that it can be cited and referenced in court. And I don't know, I just love it. And you have helped so much in integrating and allowing this to be a part of DFRWS, and that really allowed it to happen so quickly, right? Like you talked about, it was, the thought and the need had been present, but it's like DFRWS enabled it to come to be as urgently as we wanted to bring it to focus, because I think we said, hey, this is a work in progress, a WIP at an OSDF con in October, and we were publishing by March. And that's pretty cool. Kevin Pagano just said he's hoping to submit some more blog stuff soon, which, Kevin, you've been doing some really cool stuff. My students last night were talking about your blog from last week in class. So I really hope you submit some of that stuff soon.
See, and that kind of real time is what we need. I mean,
yes,
that's really what we need, and that is so powerful. And really, particularly we're in a world where, I mean, we work in the world where our facts change a lot.
Oh my gosh, do they ever?
Like, what is real is changing, I think, and so essential, right? The information that we provide isn't necessarily theoretical. It's, I mean, particularly if you're in court, it's quite important, and that information changes. And again, it's just essential to have that peer review, and you may not. I mean, I'm guessing, Jessica, you're similar to me and almost everyone I know that works in this space. My mom adores me. She has no idea what I do. Neither do most of my friends, right? I mean, it's better now. It used to be you'd have to, literally travel to other states to meet anybody that knew what you were even doing. But still, there are so many areas of research that you may there may be 5 people in the world or 10 people in the world that have the expertise to even say, no, you're spot on, or nope, you missed that, right? And we need that.
Can we talk about that for a moment in terms of reviewers? Like, seriously, if you have an area of expertise, even if it's only in a niche area, and you're not blogging, but you know your area, and maybe you can't blog because of your professional world, if you want to be a reviewer, you select your topics, and you're only going to get papers once a month. We cycle them out, and you're only going to get those blogs that pertain to your area of expertise. So it's a good way to get involved with community and help. So, like, if you want to review,
just call for program committee members. Yes,
yeah, 100%. We could always use more reviewers because it lightens load, but also people, there are such niche areas. Like if we get a paper that's in a niche area, we have to find people who know that area well enough to be able to conduct the peer review. And that's because there are so many specializations. It's such an important part.
It's critical. It's critical because then not only are you talking about applications, you're talking about the device, then across, I mean, just
hardware, firmware,
so many difficulties. So yeah, so more is more in this case.
But you're right. It's just so much, so quick, and so much is changing, and it's just really cool how much. And if you've already put the information out there, you might as well run it through the peer review process because it gives that validity to your work, and you get a DOI number, which is kind of cool. Like if you're not an academic publisher, you might not be familiar with DOI numbers, but it means that your work is immutable and referenceable, and that becomes a static address even if other things change for that work. And I think that's pretty cool, right? Like that we're able to do that for content that was originally released as a blog, which otherwise, the problem with citing a blog is you don't know if the page is being changed or updated or whatnot. Like DOI numbers are cooler than they sound. They're not just library nerdness.
You make them cool. You make them cool. I mean, I think, it just specific to DFIR review is the speed, right? So that the immediacy, and it's just a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. I mean, it's just so. I totally digress. There was, there's such a need. The world the legal world does not move at the rate that forensics and technology.
like technology and what's understood and accepted by the legal world are at completely different rates. Yeah.
And when you think about that, they're citing, case law that's, decades old, and for us, that's not relevant. So the immediacy of the ability to share information and the willingness and the dedication of this community. You just listed off the whole list, all of these names of people who are really willing to share their research. I mean, it's basically like better than giving blood.
Right. It is, because they're sharing, and it's making other people able, because there's so much changing every day. Right. People like Kevin are making it so that other people can start at that next starting point. Right? Like if you already have that research out there in that body of work, you can get that information, and now you can find the next thing, because we have to keep building, because it's like so rapid, it's changing. So speaking of rapid changes, you have been rapidly changing how people are learning about forensics through cyber sleuths. I am so inspired by what you're doing with cyber sleuths, going ahead and bringing digital forensics education to young people who otherwise wouldn't ever even know that this field exists. Can you talk about what Cyber Sleuth Labs is, how you were inspired to do it? You've got to share with everybody. It's just such an incredible project. It's making change in the real world.
Love to talk about Cyber Sleuth. I love to. So let's see, where do I start? Maybe the inspiration for it.
Sure.
One of my other favorite events is DEF CON, and so I a number of years ago, actually, it's very funny because I was flying, to produce DFRWS, and I often miss it because we've shifted, but there used to be a conflict. Anyway, I was in Las Vegas and DEF CON, and in one of the hallways, and I suddenly realized, and this had never occurred to me before, because I'd always felt comfortable in this, but it suddenly occurred to me that I was in this hallway, and that there were tens of thousands of men and just a handful of women. I mean, this was years ago. It was probably 8-9 years. I can't remember what year.
I know the feeling.
And again, it had never really occurred to me or bothered me, but because in my business, my day-to-day digital forensics solutions, I had some women come to me and look for internships and look for guidance, and were trying to get into the field. And I was, still, relatively small. And so, bringing in an intern and figuring out how to train them and give them the skills they need and maintain my errors and emissions insurance and all sorts of other things you need to do, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, proper handling of evidence, like that. So anyway, it kind of sparked in this idea. And also, I noticed, because I've had just the great fortune of having amazing people who have worked with my company. I also noticed there were things that women in particular brought to the table that were really uniquely gifted for forensics. And I would say that I really believe that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I feel like there are many things that we have that are sort of innate to survival that help tremendously in being a forensic practitioner. So anyway, that's a long story, but I had a bunch of success in applying for federal funding to develop software programs that would enable us to do things that we couldn't do, registry analysis and many other things. And so I thought, let me see if I can find a way to support introducing more women and other underrepresented populations, because there was really an issue. There's still an issue, but 10 years ago or
10 years ago. 10 years ago, I never had to wait in line for a restroom, even though there were 20,000 people at DEF CON. Exactly. And in 2019, 2 years ago, I was at DEF CON, and I came out of the bathroom, and I ran. My husband's also in InfoSec, and I ran to my husband. I said, "That was amazing." And he's like, "What talk did you see?" And I said, "I waited in line for the women's room." And because to me, that was like an enthralling experience that I feel like. So I do see a shift in a very positive way. Obviously, not still there. Obviously, there are still lots of underrepresented folks. So I love that this has been such a focus. But yeah, 10 years ago, nobody was talking about this problem. And it was a staggering issue because, I was the only woman in a lab of 70 engineers. People who have been in this field, women who have been in this field 10 plus, really are familiar with that disparity of underrepresented folks, as well as BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and a variety of other folks who are underrepresented. It is getting better, but I think 10 years ago, if you were in this field, it was stark.
Yes, it was startling. And, I don't believe in complaining about anything I'm not willing to do something about. So the National Science Foundation, in their great wisdom, saw the beauty of the project design, and we were able to launch the Cyber Sleuth Lab. We have developed curriculum. We've been testing it in a virtual learning environment because as we were going out and looking at schools, most of them didn't have computer programming in their list of requirements. If they did, it was very basic, sometimes just keyboarding skills, not a lot of even code development, certainly no cyber or forensics. And so we developed the Cyber Sleuth really to introduce women. And I will say that I have had so many mentors and role models in this field. Most of them were men. They've been welcoming. They've been supportive. Absolutely. And so it was never this idea of exclusion. I think we're just so busy, we forget to invite people in. And it's so difficult to convey visually, right? How many times have you seen you're trying to convey and I work on this for DFIR, trying to convey what it is, and you have the person, in the hoodie reaching through the screen.
But that's such not
and so
representative, right?
It's not representative, and it also doesn't talk about what we really do and how it's applied. And so I know for me, I wasn't interested in computers for computer's sake. I got interested in cyber and forensics because I wanted to do amazing projects, and I wanted to use, I was really interested in using technology.
Yes.
And it was interfering with that. And so that's why I got involved. And I think really it's been having role models, and even some of them are, like whatever, as ridiculous as an example it is, like Chloe on, 24, showing, women could work in, with computers, right? And a lot of times it is that may be the only role model that someone has is a character on a TV show. So,
what age range does Cyber Sleuth Labs teach to? What is the target of the?
So our focus is 9th through 12th grade. So really, high school is our sweet spot focus. Initially, we were one year before we got funded, they were skeptical because at that time forensics was really only being taught. It wasn't even being taught in bachelor's programs when we started this. It was really a master's or a PhD level, and so we got a little pushback. Like, can you really teach this in high school in the inner city? And we were like, absolutely. 9th through 12th grade, and actually some of our programs have students that are in middle school. So we've even reached back into 7th and 8th grade, and right now it's come full circle. So we're piloting with the 5th largest school district in the country. They have actually, as of a year, maybe 2 years ago, they actually have a cyber program in their high school, and they just happen to be in Las Vegas. So it really feels like this full circle, and I'm really hoping to take a cohort of these students to DEFCON when we return to a physical world. I mean, virtual or physical.
We'll talk offline, but I know a couple of forensics labs in Vegas, and maybe we can connect if there's a physical course. Maybe there's some connection there that's valuable for these students.
Well, let's do it.
Let's talk about that offline.
Full circle. So, and the response has been amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. So we've got, it's really just a matter of awareness and access and so. What else should I talk about?
Well, you've done camps, right? What cities have you done camps in? Because I know you've done several of these camps.
So, we started in New Orleans, because I'm based in New Orleans, and
it's Mardi Gras. That's pretty cool that our guest is from New Orleans on Mardi Gras today.
If it wasn't you, Jessica, and if it wasn't 26 degrees here, I would be out celebrating Mardi Gras, and for a few other factors. But we've had camps here in New Orleans, in Baltimore, because of Owen Casey's involvement in the project. And then my other project partner, Cassie Soden, and the National Girls Collaborative Project are based in Washington State. And so we've had pilots in Washington, New Orleans, Baltimore, and now in Las Vegas. And we are expanding. We've tested it as summer camps, after school, and currently it's an in-school program.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been absolutely, absolutely great. The response of the students has been off the charts. We've got students who are already going into the field, pursuing jobs, getting scholarships.
That's amazing. So like these women,
it's like we're in our 4th year now. So literally, that were maybe in 10th grade when we started, or actually, it's kind of mind-boggling.
That is so exciting, because it's going to change who is involved in this program going forward. And I think people forget how appealing forensics can be from us solving real problems at the community level, when people are wrongly accused, when there's crimes, digital forensics finds truth, and that can be very appealing to people, right? That they can use, and these are people who grew up with technology. So being able to use that technology to find truth. And one of the things I love, as I know a little bit about the program, is that one of the things I love is that you've made the scenarios, realistic scenarios that are relatable to that demographic of age group in order for them to feel like they're solving things that matter. And I think that that gives the heart, right? Because the most important, and that's what I love about you. You're doing DFIR for good. Like you're always finding ways to take, you do investigations as part of your day job. You run a digital forensics firm. You do analysis, you do those investigations. And then in your spare time, you're saying, how do we elevate the field in terms of making better science and better research, and I'm going to volunteer and give back to my community in that way. And how do we get the next generation spun up on this field and make sure that that next generation is more representative of the population of the world at large? And I just think it's beautiful how much you give back.
It's not, it's not entirely selfless, Jessica. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But think about it. I need qualified employees.
I get it.
I'm based in New Orleans. I really, really have a vested interest in young people having not just jobs, but good jobs, jobs that could change, not only the trajectory of their life, but, their entire families.
Absolutely.
I'm absolutely vested in people understanding technology. And, even if you don't end up in this field, there isn't a single job out there that doesn't involve technology. So you have to have that security awareness. You have to have digital citizenship skills, and also the sort of the critical thinking 21st century skills that come with forensics
and the awareness, right? So, from a privacy perspective, the awareness that you're giving these young people,
it's incredibly important. They don't get this information, and there's nothing like doing a mobile analysis, which we can have them do. Thank you to your, the magnanimous and wonderful support of our sponsors like Magnet Forensics. They're actually able to do hands-on mobile forensic investigations. And I will tell you that literally they do the mobile investigation. They look and see how much data is collected on phones and how much information is collected in phones. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it.
It's
possible.
Right.
Until you see it, it's very easy to dismiss. But Absolutely. When they actually see how much information is being collected, it literally changes them. It literally changes
Absolutely.
them. It changes their behavior. And, we were very careful not to, we did not, at no point do we say, don't post compromising photos of yourself on social media. We didn't say that, right?
No, you don't need to. Let them discover it.
One of those people, God forbid you should. I mean, actually, they told me that there was no way I could probably get NSF funding, right? And I was like, oh, yeah. So don't tell me not to do something, please. Like, I mean, seriously, right?
Right.
Ready? Let's go do Africa next, DFIR in Africa next year, because anyway, we didn't say that, but
I can probably connect you with people there too.
Understand, and they're getting this concept of how important it is, and
it's so much more when they discover it themselves, right? Like It's so much more when they see the data and you don't actually say it, and they realize, maybe I need to be a little bit more careful about my security. Maybe I need to be a little bit more conscious about this. And they become aware of how much is stored on them and how it is used in a court of law and how that truth is found. I just love that you're doing that. So you do so much. You're running a nonprofit. You're running a company, 2 companies. You're practically running 3 conferences a year. What do you do when you're not doing forensics?
Well, like I said, normally I would be out celebrating Mardi Gras. I live in New Orleans. Live music is important. We have a rich cultural, food traditions. One thing is really important, and I'm starting to focus, and it's actually falls into sort of your DFIR fit. But taking care of myself has been newly added to the list, especially during the pandemic. And it's so, so, so important for us as practitioners. It's so easy. The stuff we do is so important. It's so urgent. So I have to
be consuming.
And all consuming. Yeah. So during APAC, there were some 21-hour days that, in those weeks. And so I am doing my best to find a little balance. But I am crazy and I love cars. So I'm interested. I love cars. I'm restoring 2 cars right now.
What are they? I am not a gearhead, but I'm sure some gearheads that may be listening might be curious. I've seen pictures. Your vintage cars are your one I've seen pictures of is incredible. But can you share what they are?
So one of them is it's sort of masquerading as a 52 MG. It's actually an Allison, and Allison is the guy who did dune buggies, and he was the first manufacturer to do some MGTD replicas. And so I have one. The beauty of it is that I can literally go get my parts at AutoZone. So that was my first one. I'm very, very proud to say that I found it on Craigslist for $1,500. It was the best I've ever bought on Craigslist, and I've bought a lot of stuff on Craigslist. But I've been using Craigslist. Literally, Craig was like this dude in Seattle who, there were too many high-tech jobs. So I've been using Craigslist since the, early days. And then I just imported a Sarah, which is a Toyota car that was manufactured, never released in the United States. It's only possible to import them now. There's a time span that you have to wait for them to pass through customs. But it's the Toyota that was the inspiration for the McLaren butterfly doors.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, that's my new project. So
how awesome!
Sarah, SERA, like the angel, like a seraphim.
Oh, yeah. I love it! I love it! I love it! I love it! That's so cool. All right, so you do all these great projects. You've been in this field. You are one of the OGs, and you've been in this field a long time. You've brought interns in. You've grown students who are you're beginning this process of growing students in high school to become forensics examiners. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to break into the field?
This is actually a huge part of cyber sleuth. This is part of the cyber sleuth. I feel like this is so important that it's part of the cyber sleuth curriculum. So I find that not just for this field, any field, figuring out what you enjoy doing. My mentor, I remember when I first moved to Seattle, I wrote to her, and she was in her 80s. She was an artist. She had traveled all over the world. She was in museums all over the world. And I wrote her like that angst-ridden email, like, I just don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And she wrote me back and she said, my dear, I still don't know what I want to be when I've just celebrated my 86th birthday, and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But I have learned what I enjoy doing.
I love that.
That is how I spend my time. And her words have stayed with me. I still have this. Her letter survived Katrina. And so really,
I'm so happy to hear that.
Figuring out what it is that you enjoy doing. And so starting with, do you like to work in a team? Are you better on your own? Do you want to work in a group? Do you want to work in a small environment? Do you want to work in a great big environment? Do you like a routine? If you want to work sort of 9 to 5 and go home, maybe you could work in a government setting. If you want to, just like starting to think about the kinds of who you are as a person. and the sort of environment. And then the other big question, once you figure that out, is the kind of problems you want to solve.
Yes.
So what kind of problems interest you? And then once you have sort of what you enjoy doing and the kind of problems you're interested in solving, then you can start to think about who you might want to solve them for. And so, it starts from there. And then what we do is we have our students, really go through like a, most personality test, and then start looking at current job openings and companies and looking at what the skills are. And then we have them develop like a personal plan.
I love that. Oh my gosh. This is brilliant.
We introduce them to there's a lot of funding available. There's a lot of different programs, and so much of that, Jessica, we didn't have that when we were,
No. When we came into this field, there was no.
You can do a virtual tour of universities. You can figure out who you want to work with. And so for me, those are the things that drive me. And then other stuff, where do you want to work? How much money do you need to make? But really that driver of who are you? What matters? What problems do you want to solve, and who you want to solve them for? So
do you know what I love that you're unlocking? I love that you're unlocking this concept of one of the most important things in choosing a career is finding something that you're going to enjoy doing, and then handling all the other things. How much do you need to make? Where do you need to live, etc. I don't think that's where most people start. And as a forensics examiner in this career, I feel, and I'm sure you feel the same way, like I am the luckiest woman in the world, or the luckiest person in the world, the luckiest human in the world, because I found something that I can enjoy doing, that I can meet so many facets of my personal growth and development and challenge and everything else, and feel like I'm still doing good in the work I do. And I think that's something that's so attractive about digital forensics. But what was really cool is what you said about developing this individual plan is all of those different personality qualities you named. I sat here as you were saying that, and I thought of the forensic roles that allow for people to work in teams, to work individual, to work in big group settings, and there are different roles that meet those different requirements and lifestyles. And building that plan to get there, that gives you that map. I love it.
And we do that. So we tie everything in this program. So we start there, broadly, and then we tie it specifically into cyber and DFIR and ICT, because it's a bigger field, right? So, I feel very strongly there's two things. One is our jobs didn't exist when we went to schools, and my job didn't exist. One of the reasons I founded a company is because the job didn't exist. And so it's like, well, so I'm beta job. And I feel like more and more and more that's going to be happening. We're not in this world where, everyone is going to grow. I mean, it used to be, I think of my mom, she was like, well, you can be a teacher or a nurse. And we're not in that world. And so many of the careers that I'm trying to prepare our students for don't even exist. But I do feel, no matter what you do, if you are interested in any field, cyber and digital forensics is going
to be part of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Make sure you have a job. Like, do you have a job? Do you still have a company to work for, right? If you are not mindful in terms of your, whatever you want to call it, digital hygiene, you may not have a job for long, or you might tank your company, right? I mean, literally one keystroke, one click. It's so critically important. So even if you're not working as a practitioner, I firmly believe everyone needs to have that sense and also understand the privacy aspects of tech and also ethics. I'm a big fan of ethics and technology. So
thank you so much.
Your question. I'm sorry, I get really.
No, 1000%. Thank you so much for sharing. I am just always so enthralled by all the things that you do, the ways that you really are trying to be on the bleeding edge of making things for our community better and taking the aspects of our community and applying them to the world at large. So thank you so much for sharing so much with us. Thank you so much for being our guest. It's been such a pleasure.
It's been a joy, and actually members of the community like you, Jessica Hyde, make me very proud to be part of this community. I'm really proud of our community. I think it's, just it's first rate, really. So
well, thank you
for having me.
Thank you for being a mentor to me. Thank you for being someone who I look up to and I learn from.
That's shocking, but how? I mean, I feel that way about you. So thank you. I wish I could I wish I could work in your shadow. I need your I need your military training with running as many businesses. I can't imagine. So, all right.
Thank you for everything. It's been such a pleasure. Please, if you want to see what else is coming up on Cash Up, we're completely booked through the end of April. Next week, we have Eric Katz, followed by Chad Tilbury, Katie Nichols, Lexi Van Den Heuvel, Ali Hadi, Brian Hussey, Matt Mitchell, talk about forensics for good, Ori Corbello, Steve Watson, and more. We hope to see you next week. Thanks, everyone.